Gayle Lofthouse.
BBC Radio Leeds.
Now, we sometimes talk about transforming ourselves or empowering ourselves, either through classes or courses, or maybe you've read a book, or maybe you've thought about changing certain behaviours. But what happens when that initial zest is gone? What do you do then? How do you take what you've learned and then put it into practical, regular use? Well, Aletta Palmer is my next guest. Aletta is from Bradford and is the founder of Emotions CIC. She aims to help the women of West Yorkshire do all of this. So I'm ready for this. Let's find out, what can Aletta tell us? Hello there.
Hi, Gayle.
Hi, thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about your journey into what you do now. Have you always been massively interested in empowerment and all that sort of stuff, or did it happen because something happened to you?
I haven't always, no. So I was a woman who only knew chaos, dysfunction and stress growing up. So it wasn't something that I was like born into. I spent the first 38 years of my life unknowingly in survival mode. I'm 42 now. And I was riddled with suppressed grief after losing my mum and sister in a car accident, and drifting from one unhealthy relationship to another until I hit rock bottom in 2016. And I realized that I hated everything. I hated myself. I hated my life. I hated everyone and everything. And I realized no one was coming to save me, and I had to save me. But I knew that I had to change. It was me that had to change. It was me that needed to change.
How was all of this sort of manifesting itself? Because it sounds, I think a lot of people can relate to that chaos and that sort of never stopping to address certain things because, you know, life just carries on. But how was it manifesting itself with you? Were you exhausted? Because it sounds exhausting, actually.
Yeah, well, I was just running on autopilot the entire time, and I was putting on this facade that I was okay, but behind closed doors, I was a broken woman. And that manifests itself. Yeah, it manifests as, you know, exhaustion, but, you know, it causes a lot of, you know, it interrupts your sleep. It causes a lot of health issues. It caused a lot of, you know, emotional reactive. I was a very reactive woman. You know, I didn't have a handle of my emotions.
So you were, I mean, let's take that as you were kind of you were at ground zero when you realised that. How did you start to change things? How did you start to turn your life around?
It just started with a decision that I realised I'd never been happy in my life. I hated who I'd become. I wasn't happy. I just felt so empty. And I realised I'd never actually put myself first. So that's where it started for me. And I didn't have a clue how I was going to change my life. I just knew I was going to do it. I was going to find out. And so it actually started with Tony Robbins.
It started with who, sorry?
Tony Robbins, and just diving into the whole, you know, going down the rabbit hole of self-development.
Right. Okay. So you started doing a little bit of reading and learning a little bit more about how you could change.
Yeah, so I started watching motivational videos on YouTube, and then I started reading books, and that just took me further and further into, oh, actually, there's such a thing as self-love. And actually, I didn't even know what self-love was. It's not something that I'd ever come across in my life before. And as I started to dive into it more, I started to realize that I could actually create a future vision for myself and then work towards it and change the things that I needed to change in my life to get there.
Sounds like you made a decision one day, but then how long was that process of recovery and then sort of building you up?
So the first few years of my journey, it was just, I was still in survival mode. This is what people don't realize. I was still in survival mode, and I was kind of running away from my old life. So I was doing all the self-help things. I was reading, I was doing the courses, but I was making a little bit of progress, but nothing was really changing. And that's because my life was still chaotic. Nothing had changed on the outside, even though I'd made a decision that I wanted to change. So what changed for me was later on when I realized, actually, I have a lot of emotional trauma. I have a lot of emotional trauma responses. I need to work on my emotional triggers and reactions. And only then did things start to change. And that was years into my journey. I've been on this journey for 8 years now.
Oh my gosh. So now do you run workshops then? Do you invite other people to learn from you?
Yeah, so I started it online. It actually became a business by accident. I just started talking about my journey and talking about how I wanted to change my life. And I just started posting like motivational quotes and things like that. And I started going live, and I kind of built an audience online of other women who really resonated with my message and understood. And it turned into a community. And now it's been about 5 years since then. So now I'm just in this place where this is my hometown, Bradford. This is where all my trauma started. This is where, I've transformed my life. So why not? Why not help the women in Bradford do the same? So now I've just recently started in-person workshops.
And have you been awarded some national lottery money as well to help?
Yes, that's right. So I started my community interest company is very new. So what I found is, whilst I had this online presence and people were paying me, and I had this online business, there were a lot of women coming to me through social media, whether it was through friends and family or past clients, and they didn't have the money to pay me. And I found myself coaching these women in their inbox because I wanted to help them, but I was doing it for free, and it was taking a lot of time and my time and energy. And then someone mentioned a social enterprise, and I started diving into, what that means and what a community interest company is. So now, having awarded my first funding, which was it was just under £20,000, it's now given me this opportunity to create these transformative workshops and put all my time and energy into creating that for the women and offering it to them for free.
How often do you do them?
The National Lottery players. At the moment, I'm doing them in person every other week and online every other week. So the week that I'm not doing in person, I'll do an online workshop.
Brilliant. Well, it sounds like it's going really, really well. I think where I started was this idea of, you can feel empowered for the time that you're in a workshop, maybe, or, when you're reading that book, or, when you're being inspired at that moment. The difficulty is when you're left by yourself, I think. So how do you, when you're doing the workshops, you're there, you're offering the support. How do you make sure that people carry those great feelings and those great actions away with them? Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I do. Yeah. And I'm always very real with the women, and I tell them, I can only guide them so far. It is their own journey. There's got to be some sort of self-awareness and self-accountability there. And it's up to them to cultivate their own motivation and empowerment when they're not in the workshops. And they understand that. And the framework that I have, the way that I've built my workshops, so it's an acronym it spells the word heart, and H is for healing, E is for emotional regulation, A is for awareness, which is self-awareness. And then we've got R, which is for resilience, and T is for transformation. And they understand that this is a journey. I make it very clear to them, this is a journey. It's not, you're not trying to just get somewhere. You're not going to get a quick fix. This is a commitment to yourself.
And how are you now? Do you feel like you are much more in control of your life? Is it much less chaos and, much more, are you more empowered yourself?
Yeah. And I love to share my story about this, because I feel like if I can transform my life and get to this place where I am so regulated that things can happen in life still happens. My life's not perfect, but the way that I experience emotions and the way that I express emotions is so much more controlled and regulated. It doesn't rock me to my core. It doesn't pull me back to square one. Like, that's what happens with most people. They get so far and then they end up back at square one. And I love sharing this journey with people and sharing, look, this is where I was, this is what I did, this is where I am now, and I can help you get there too. And the women are telling me, how much it's changing their lives. So that just, it fuels my passion even more.
It's such a miserable, horrible day today as well, Aletta. It might be quite difficult for people to sort of pull themselves up by the bootstraps. But, what do you try and think? Do you have a mantra? Do you have something that you tell yourself on days like this when it just feels like actually all you really want to do is crawl back into bed?
I think when you are living this lifestyle, it's a lot easier. I don't get to a place where I just think, oh no, it's raining outside today. I'm a very motivated, positive person, and even when things are not looking well, I can still find the good. And this is what I teach: embracing the duality of life, walking with happiness and sadness at the same time. And, looking at what's working, you can deal with all the issues, conflicts and whatever, but also just looking at what's working and where you're going, having that future vision and knowing that feeling good is a choice.
You certainly don't sound chaotic. You sound very chilled, and you sound like you know exactly where you're going and what you're doing. If people would like to find out more about the workshops, or maybe they would like to get in touch with you, where should they do a little search?
So Facebook is where I hang out most of the time, and it's Elle Palmer, ELLE Palmer, Better Emotions CIC. Can message me on either one of those, or they can go to my website, betteremotionscic.co.uk. Are
you more of an Elle than an Aletta then? Should I have been calling you Elle the whole way through?
You could. So my name is spelled Aletta, but it's actually pronounced Alita.
Oh, is it?
And I usually go by Elle because it's just so much easier for people when they see it.
Oh, well, I'm sorry I didn't ask you how to say your name, but it's beautiful. So thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully at some point we'll speak again, but thank you so much for coming on. Elle Palmer, it's been wonderful to talk to you. You take care. Thank you so much. Bye.